I am starting the broadcast now, and you should be live.
Fantastic. How fun is this that we are actually beginning our very first eChapter meeting. So yes, we are working out all the technical glitches, so that's why this is called a soft launch in my business, but I could not be more thrilled. So good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to the first meeting of the NAPW eChapter. We are absolutely thrilled to bring this exciting new virtual chapter to our members and provide a convenient, innovative way for you to connect with the 775,000 plus NAPW members across the nation and around the world. So yes, our members are busy women, leading teams in corporate America, running their own businesses, juggling school and a career, raising families, and working hard to succeed in every facet of their lives. Yes, I'm here at my home office right now. You know, I've always believed women network in a different way. So we want to meet you where you are. With so much going on, many find it difficult to make it to a local chapter meeting. I get you, we're busy. So we don't want our members to ever miss out on an opportunity to connect with one another, exchange ideas, support each other, and all importantly, network. So the NAPW eChapter is the absolute perfect solution. We bring the power of the NAPW network directly to you on your desktop, laptop, mobile device, so you can engage with the NAP network no matter where you are. I am always plugged in. Our eChapter is your home away from your physical local chapter when your schedule won't allow you to attend a meeting. And we all know NAPW has over 200 local chapters. However, if you don't live in the vicinity of a local chapter, we hope you will make the eChapter your home chapter and grow your network of professional women. Now, I got to be honest. I belong to the New York City chapter, and my president is Louise Newsom. I've also joined the eChapter, so that's my home chapter also. You can simply use the eChapter group page to interact with other members of the eChapter and join our bi-weekly meetings. And I hope you've been getting my little missives over the past week. We plan to make the eChapter a force to be reckoned with when it comes to networking. So our local chapter division will manage the NAPW eChapter. I want each of you to know that this is as much your chapter as it is ours. So we welcome your ideas, your input, your suggestions, and things about meeting dates, times, and programming, so we can truly make this one of our most powerful NAPW chapters. I know Louise is going to tell you this later, but I am so thrilled to tell you that this is the fastest growing chapter of NAPW ever. Before we went live, we hit 750 members. Wow. Like our 200 plus local chapters nationwide, we will incorporate the NAPW Foundation Calendar into our eChapter and provide opportunities for you to support our foundation partners, the American Heart Association, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Dress for Success, and Girls Incorporated, as you do every single day across the country in your local chapters. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce one of my partners in crime and all things NAPW, Louise Newsom, the president of our New York City chapter, my home chapter, and NAPW's National Director of Local Chapters. She and her team will spearhead our eChapter, and she will facilitate today's meeting. She has done a great job, and I am proud to introduce you to Louise. Louise?
Thank you, Star. It's always a pleasure to be at an event with you, especially this one. Over the past months, we've seen some major additions to NAPW member benefits, this certainly being a big one. With over 700 members who've already joined the eChapter over the past several days, this is definitely the fastest growing chapter to date. And for our first 500 members who join the eChapter, we'll be placing a badge on your napw.com profile, acknowledging you as an inaugural member. As you also said, Star, the eChapter enables all members of NAPW to be part of a networking community, especially for those who do not have a local chapter in their area. I want to welcome all the attendees, and I'm truly honored to be the host of our national e-networking eChapter, our virtual online chapter for NAPW members only. We will be hosting the eChapter bi-weekly with our next event on September 9th at noon Eastern Time. As Star mentioned, we will be following the NAPW Foundation Calendar. So for September, we will be celebrating Women of Achievement with a panel of some of our most aspirational VIP members in the field of entrepreneurship, business, science, and technology. I would like to introduce Natalie Dougherty, NAPW Content Marketing Manager, who is our chat moderator for today, and will be chatting along with you during the event. You will see the chat bar on the right side of the screen. Please ask questions along the way, as Natalie will be hosting the Q&A after our presentation. If you want to specifically ask a question, please click the little arrow on that chat box icon where you type and click Ask a Question. This will highlight questions for Natalie to see. State your name and where you are joining us from when you ask your question. Please understand, though, that we might not have time to go through all the questions today, and we appreciate your patience. You will also see several times during the event a poll pop up on your screen. Please take a minute to answer the questions. Your feedback is important to us. Any technical difficulties during the call, please try to refresh first. If this does not work, log out and then log back in. If you are still having technical difficulties, you can reach out to the support team at www.webinarjam/welcome/support.html. Now it's time to introduce our speaker for today, Amanda Augustine. Amanda is a well-recognized expert in all things related to career advancement, from identifying your dream job to developing your professional brand, to acing your next interview. She is a job search and career consultant with a passion for helping people finding the right job sooner. In addition, Amanda is a highly sought-after speaker whose clients include corporations, universities, and nonprofit groups, including KPMG, Marie Claire, Ann Taylor, Marist College, Set Up Women's Network, the National Association of Professional Women, and StreetWise Partners. Amanda is a longtime VIP member of NAPW and a valued board member of the New York City chapter. In recognition of Heritage Month on the NAPW Foundation Calendar, Amanda will be discussing making a mark on your professional and personal brand. Amanda.
Thanks so much. Can everyone hear me? Louise, can you hear me? Excellent. That's all I wanted to make sure before I started gabbing on and no one can understand what I'm saying. Hello, ladies. It's so nice to finally meet all of you. My name's Amanda Augustine, as Louise mentioned. And can everybody see my screen? Are we good to go? Right now, you should be seeing a picture that shows my title, some ways that you can get in touch with me, but also our hashtag for today. So if you like to have several devices in your hands at once, or perhaps you have multiple tabs or multiple screens open, feel free to also check out Twitter. And if you hear anything today that strikes your fancy, some interesting learning from today that you want to share with the audience, please tweet at NAPW eChapter if you include that hashtag, and then you can also check that out to see all the things that are coming out. I also promise I'm going to have a number of tweets going out throughout the presentation with some links for additional information. So when I'm talking about something, we have limited time, there will be access to additional information on practically everything I'm talking about today. So as Louise mentioned, this is Heritage Month for NAPW Foundation, and really what that means to me is I think about what's one's professional legacy? When you retire, what do you want to be known for, and what mark do you want to leave behind in your industry? So not only are we talking about your reputation, but also what is that online trail of your professional journey going to say? I absolutely love this quote that came from Denise Morrison, who's currently the CEO of Campbell Soup Company, and the full quote goes something like this: Don't just let your career happen to you. You need to be strategic about how you define your leadership journey and where it takes you. And I think that's incredibly important because I think we get so caught up in the day-to-day things that we forget to take a step back and say, am I really in charge of my career anymore? Am I in charge of or in control of that professional journey? Because if you're not taking control of your professional path, somebody else will, and you might not like what it leads you to. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. In order to manage your career, you need to take inventory. You need to think about what are your strengths as well as what are your weaknesses. What are you passionate about? At the end of the day, what drives you? What interests you? Think really about what have you done over the course of your career that you're truly proud of and happy to be doing. And then also, what are your fears? Now, this is something we kind of forget to think about from time to time, but what holds you back from something you deserve or taking advantage of an opportunity that's going to help you advance and succeed? As much as we want to talk about where we've come from and where we want to go, what are the impediments in the way that are holding us back from getting to that end dream? And so that's what I want to start out talking about. I urge everybody to use this information to chronicle their career history and really think about what's going on and make your own professional bucket list. So I've got this weird word up there, bags, and I'm not talking about the lovely shopping bags that we all know and love so much, but what I am talking about is what leadership expert Jim Collins refers to as your big, hairy, audacious goals. And think of these are the long-term, visionary, big goals over the next 5, 10, 15 years. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be known for? And I think sometimes we forget about that. We're so caught up in what do we want to accomplish tomorrow or even by the end of this week that we forget about the long-term goals, and that loses sight. And frankly, our goals change over time. So today, if you were going to say, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? What am I going to be doing in 10 years? What would that be? And how might that differ from the past? I really urge you to take some time and actually write that information down and think about it. And if you can't think that far ahead yet, if that's way too overwhelming or you're still trying to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, think about maybe what type of goal would you like to make for yourself just to accomplish in 2006 or by the end of next year? What does that look like? Because today you don't have to focus on those bags. Those are the really long-term goals, right? But you can focus on those first couple steps. I love this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. because it resonates on so many different levels, right? Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step. And that's exactly what you need to do with your career as well. What is the one thing you can do today, tomorrow, next week that's going to put you one step closer to a very long-term goal, to something that will truly make you happy? And hey, maybe that's retirement in 5 years for you. That's fantastic. But again, what do you need to accomplish in that time period so that you retire comfortably? If you're at the beginning of your career, where do you ultimately see yourself going? And if that's a big blank question mark, well then perhaps it's maybe the first steps are you need to explore a little bit and figure out. Does that make sense? Michelle, just wanted to double check. Can people hear me?
Absolutely, Amanda.
All right, thank you. Just checking. All right, moving on to the next slide, ladies. Okay, we talked about what are the little steps you can do today, tomorrow, next week. These are the short-term steps, and this is what I'd recommend doing. Once you've done that soul searching and you've thought about what do I want to do next, what do I want to do ultimately, and you're looking at those first steps, develop an action plan. Maybe it's just to get you through the fall. Maybe it's to get you through the end of this year. Maybe it's just to get you through the end of August, which is not that far away. But what are some short-term steps you can take that are going to help you either tackle a fear, create a new opportunity for yourself? And these are some that I've listed here because I think you should make 2 lists. One should be, what are some of the steps you could take today? And then the next is, what are the resources that are already available to you that you might not be taking advantage of? So for instance, are you seeking out mentors? Have you really tapped into your friends beyond just your professional network? Are you utilizing industry groups on and offline? Groups like Level League, Toastmasters. And don't forget, NAPW.com has a great section of resources. It's on the upper right-hand side of the page. So I truly recommend checking that out and seeing what's there that might be able to help you move to the next level. Perhaps it's just getting involved in a group that you're already a part of, such as NAPW. How active have you been in the past? Maybe it's time to step it up and take more of a leadership role within your local chapter, or to volunteer to help out more with the eChapter. One thing I forgot to mention to everybody is that I am from New York City, and that, believe it or not, this is caffeine-free Amanda, but I know I speak very quickly. So if you guys are having trouble and I'm talking too quickly, please shout it out in the chat room. Tell Natalie to make sure I'm aware of it, and I will try and slow down or repeat something. And again, we are going to do Q&A at the end, so we can always go back to a slide if you have any questions. So once we've had this heart-to-heart with ourselves, we thought about where do we want our professional journey to go, it's also important to take a step back and ask yourself, what does my professional brand look like today, and is that supporting my long-term goals? Because again, I really think people don't tend to focus on the personal brand until they're ready to go for a job search. And if you're only looking at these things when you're conducting a job search, you're probably missing out on a lot of great opportunities to advance your career in those times when you are gainfully employed and very happy in a current position. And so, as with a company or with a brand, there are a number of ways that we knowingly, maybe sometimes unknowingly, promote our professional brand to the outside world. Whether it's our online profiles, personal as well as professional, the photos that we use on those, the headshots, how we present ourselves in the office, outside the office, at networking events, during interviews, and how we're dressing. Everything about us is representing our brand in some way, shape, or form. And when was the last time you took a step back and said, is this what I want my brand to represent? Is it telling the story that I want it to be telling? And if not, what do I need to do to start tweaking that? Okay, so step one, we're going to talk about cleaning up your online brand, because there are a lot of issues there. There are a lot of things we see. And so we're actually going to open up with a poll right now. Miss Natalie, if you could help me out. You guys should see a poll pop up very soon. And what I want to know from everybody is, how frequently do you Google yourself? Are you doing this annually, monthly, weekly, daily, or have you never bothered to Google yourself at this point?
Are we supposed to be answering this, or is this a poll?
This should be a poll. I'm waiting for it to pop up. All right, I'm seeing it. I'm loving these responses. All right, I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Everybody hit your poll button. How frequently do you Google yourself?
Amanda, this is Star. Let me interject and tell you, there's some of us that don't want to Google ourselves on a regular basis.
I can understand that. I can understand that. I'm forced to do it practically daily just to make sure I'm seeing what's popping up from a media perspective and that sort of thing. Well, put it this way. If you're in a position, perhaps you have a team that's monitoring this for you. But if you're working for yourself, chances are you need to be doing this on your own.
Okay, so I'm going to interject while you are looking at the poll, because I want this to be interactive, and I want our members to feel as if they are getting just the straight Skippy. Google is not the only way for you to check out your own online reputation. Talk to us a little bit about some other ways.
Sure, sure. There are actually a number of services out there where you can look at your brand to see what's going on. If you are in a position where your brand is a very large part of your work, for instance, I obviously have to monitor my brand pretty carefully to see what's going on out there. You want to make sure you have a team that's also monitoring for you. There's a great service I use. It's called Newsly, Newsle, and basically what it allows me to do is it will send me a note every time that there's an article published that my name's mentioned in. There's also a great tool that a lot of PR people use. It's called MuckRack, MuckRack, and this is also a way to find out anytime you are mentioned on Twitter whatsoever, whether somebody shares a link where your name is included in the article that link's associated with, whether somebody actually looks at your handle and mentions you. So I really like that way. Something else is that IBM came out with a really cool tool, though they're using it more for the enterprise side of the business, but they have a new tool out where you can get this holistic view of yourself and also what personality, what people see out there about you. Another great tool is called Crystal. It's spelled just the way you think it would be spelled, like a regular gem, a crystal. And you can sign up to get on their list. And what's very interesting is that you can look up anybody that you're going to be speaking with. And it will look at everything about them on social media, everything that's online about them, and give you a sense of, based on what's out there, what's their type of personality and what's the right way to talk to them. So I think that's wonderful for when you're going to be speaking to someone else, but also run the search on yourself just to see what's popping up. And if you don't like what's being represented out there, then you know you have to start changing some things up because perception's reality. And if anybody else uses that tool, that's what they're going to find out about you.
Amanda, that is an excellent, excellent list, especially if for our members who are small business owners and they are looking to hire employees. I'm not sure that people realize that almost every new employer, is always looking at your social media as well as your personal brand that is a part of social media. And some of those tools are the tools that they use every day. So we want our members to incorporate that in their everyday work environment. So take some notes.
Oh, 100%. A JobVite social recruiting study found that 93% of employers and hiring managers said they're going to Google you before they bring you in for a face-to-face interview. So it's really important that you're Googling yourself just to know what's out there, that you're seeing what profiles are available, because if you're not doing it, somebody else is, and you need to be aware of what's out there about yourself. So I'm going to end this poll now, and I think these are really interesting results. 22% have never Googled themselves. 45% do it once a year. It's interesting. A survey by the Ladders found that more than 35% of their professionals only Google themselves on an annual basis. And 16% had never, ever Googled their name. So we actually have higher results than the average professional that the Ladders was polling. I want to change these numbers. If we came and did this a year from now or even 6 months from now, I'd like these numbers to look really differently, because you are going to find out that you need to know what's going on. Today's the day you want to change that. Put this on your list of things to do when you get off this webinar later tonight. Google your name as it appears on your LinkedIn profile, as it appears on your business cards. Whatever you're using from a professional standpoint, you need to be consistent in how you're representing your name. Are you using a middle initial? Are you using a nickname, or are you using your full name? Just make sure that whatever people see about you online, face-to-face, in person, it's all telling one consistent story. And I think that's where we get caught up, is that we forget that there are a lot of different things going on, and you need to make sure that when someone gets a holistic view of you, you don't look like you're schizophrenic with a bunch of split personalities, but actually you've got one consistent brand and one consistent story out there. So for instance, this is taking a look at Googling my name, and that picture on the right-hand side is just horrendous, and I really need to work about getting that one down, because that is not cute. But this gives you a list, and I got to say, I'm happy with my results, because the top things that pop up are the main publication that I write for, my LinkedIn profile, and my Twitter handle, all of which are associated with my professional brand. So for you, I'd like to know what pops up for you. And then we're going to talk about, okay, what can we do to change the results if you don't like what's out there? So the first step is knowing what in the world are people seeing about you. The next is how can you change that, or how can you prepare to answer questions about it if you're not liking what you see. So one thing I'd like everyone to do is you make a list of every single social media site you have out there that you have a profile on. I don't care if it's Instagram, Pinterest, Vine, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, make that huge list and then decide which ones are going to be set aside just for personal use and which ones are going to be set aside for professional branding. And just because you're not using it for professional branding doesn't mean it can't be a job search tool. You can be anonymous on Twitter and gather lots of information. You just don't use it to associate with your professional brand. So keep that kind of thing in mind. If it's in a personal account and you don't want anyone seeing it, for instance, my personal Facebook account, I try and hide that one. That's where I have pictures of my dog and my husband and my family and that sort of stuff. That's not stuff I want necessarily prospective networking contacts and employers to see. So when you have a personal account, the first thing is increase the security settings. And I am tweeting out a link from @JobSearchAmanda. Just look for the hashtag NAPW eChapter on safeguarding your social media accounts. I literally went through, I don't know, like the top 5 most popular and listed the steps on how you can increase the security settings so that the outside world doesn't see that stuff. Another thing to consider is changing the display name on the account to something different. So maybe it's your first name and middle name, or you use a nickname that you wouldn't use on anything professional. For instance, my friend Danielle, she's a lawyer, and guess what? Her Facebook account says Dizzy. No one's going to find Dizzy and know that that's associated with her professional brand. If it is a professional account, make sure it's up to date. Make sure it's in alignment with your resume, with your job goals. It's telling the same story. Just that's the most important thing. Are you going to use Tiffany, or are you going to use Tiff for your name? Are you going to use your middle initial or not? Whatever you decide to do, there's no wrong or right really there. You just want to make sure it's consistent across all of your different networks. Something else to keep in mind, and I think a lot of people forget about this, is don't forget about all those job boards you've used in the past. If you've searched for a job in the last 10, 12, 15 years, chances are you probably uploaded your resume onto a job board. And there's a lot of different ones out there. As a career management expert, many times I've had job seekers tell me, this recruiter reached out to me, they said they found my resume, and they're offering me a job that I did, 5 years ago. I'm not in that level anymore. And I go, yeah, well, what resume are they looking at? And so it's really important to think about, oh my goodness, all those sites out there. When you get the job, you kind of forget about all the rest of the stuff. But really go back and say, all right, do I want my resume on any of these job boards still? Do I want recruiters reaching out to me in case something, comes up that's interesting? In my opinion, I'd say yes. You should always be searching. Always be open to new opportunities. But here's the deal. Go through all those different job boards and decide, do I want to keep an open and current account or not? And if you don't, take down the resume, deactivate the account, get yourself off there. If you do want to represent yourself out there, make sure it's the most current version of your resume so that if you do get a call or an email, it's hopefully relevant as opposed to something that may have happened in the past. Make sense? All right, moving on. Okay, so now what do you do when you do get some of those sites where it's not so great? All right. There are some things you can do about that. If your Google search unearths some unflattering results, there are a couple options. You can reach out to the website and try to get the article or the page taken down. Another way is that you can quote-unquote push down negative results by getting your name mentioned in other web pages for all the right reasons. So this could mean developing additional professional profiles. If you don't have a lot out there today, there's plenty out there, and we'll look at those in a moment. You can start a blog if that makes sense for you and your profession. Depending on your profession, you might seek out media ops. One of my favorite resources, Help a Recruiter Out. just Google HARO, H-A-R-O. If you're a business owner or you want to be known for your expertise in a certain subject, you can actually sign up for alerts to find out what are journalists writing about and what are they looking for in terms of sources, and you can put yourself out there and pitch yourself and your thoughts and expertise to these people so that you end up in their stories. I do a lot of that for myself. That's a great way to get more mentions of yourself out there so that maybe some of the negative stuff's down at the bottom. Something else to think about, whatever you do, click on the link a million times and send it around and share it with all your friends. If there's something out there that you don't like about yourself, do not send the link around to everyone you know and say, can you believe what they wrote? How could they put that? Or, oh my gosh, that picture's unflattering. Because the more that link gets clicked on, the more likely it is to rise up in the results. So what you want to do is you want to take a screenshot, send that screenshot around to people and say, please don't look for the link. Because when they click on the link, they are not helping you. All right, moving on. This is a really good list, I think, of a number of different options you can use for branding yourself. So these range all over the place. Some of these are very visual representations of your work. Some of these are great places. For instance, I have an About Me folder or About Me profile. I have a few clients that have branded.me. These are spots where basically it's creating another version of yourself, something a bit more creative. Wix, WordPress, those are more your blogs. Medium, that's what the M stands for on the bottom. That's another place where you can blog without necessarily having to create your own blog, but you can contribute content. These are all different ways that you can get your brand out there, whether you own a business, you're in a creative field, or you have some sort of expertise that you want to share with the world and you want to be known for in your industry. These are different resources I recommend checking out. Figure out what's the right one for you. I don't recommend grabbing all of them and trying to do a large number of these. That's too much. You can't maintain that. But pick one that really works for you, that makes sense for you and your goals, and use it as a vehicle to help get your brand out there. Okay, we are ready for our next poll. So get ready. I'm throwing it out there. Again, it will pop up like a poll. It's not something that you need to answer in the chat section, but look for the poll. When meeting new people at a networking event, how do you introduce yourself? Do you use your first name only? Do you use your first name and your last name, or do you use something else? I think this question is very interesting because oftentimes I'm part of the New York City local chapter. I'm often part of the whole events section where we're getting people, you know, registered and in the room, and we're handing out name tags and that sort of thing. And it's always interesting because they always want to know, well, what do you want on my name tag? And I say, well, whatever your heart desires, because I want to see what they put on their own. You should have the freedom to put whatever you want on your name tag. I'm curious as to what people tend to use. I know some people also include, if they're a small business owner, the name of their business, or even if they're in corporate America, they'll include the name of their business. I've seen people put their Twitter handle on, things of that nature. So yeah, people add a lot of stuff. But I'm curious in particular, do you tend to put your first name on the name tag? Do you tend to introduce yourself with your first name, or do you tend to use the first and last? And I'm going to give it, I think we have stopped moving, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to end the poll. So closing now. Beautiful. So a whopping 68% are using their first and last name. And I love that we put only at the end. That was my fault. Sorry. So if you're using your first and last name, you're actually in the right here. This is what I normally recommend. The next time if you're the 24% that's only using your first name, obviously the 8%, that could be something completely different. But for those 24% that are not, I highly recommend trying next time to use your first and last name. This is something, again, that women tend to do in the workplace that men don't. women tend to introduce themselves by their first name only. And really the reason behind that is that it just makes it easier to be forgotten and lost in the crowd. There are a lot of Sarahs, there are a lot of Maries, there are a lot of Christinas out there. So you want to try and use your first and last name. And if you have one of those crazy names that you feel nobody can pronounce, you might want to do an abbreviated version. I understand that. If your first name is incredibly unique, okay, maybe you don't have to use your last name because it's a mouthful and you've run into issues. I get that. But on the average, if your name is easy to pronounce, you do want to use your first and last name. Look the person in the eye, smile confidently, say your full name. You're much more likely to sound more professional, and you're less likely to be forgotten. So leave the first name introductions to Madonna and Beyonce. We're going to go with the and Star. Actually, Star, you can get away with that because your name is quite unique. So I'm going to say you get the caveat on this one as well. But the Amandas out there, I'm going to go with Amanda Augustine.
Amanda, I'm going to always choose Star Jones.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to always choose Star.
I love it. I love it. And I do love that your Twitter handle has the ESQ at the end for Esquire. I always immediately think of that as part of your brand and your professional journey, and it's always been such a good indicator for me, to be quite honest.
Amanda, also, one of the things that I do is I am consistently Star Jones ESQ across all social media platforms. I think that's something that women need to make sure we are not, Dizzy on one place and Amanda Augustine on another place and Stars Amanda on a third place. We want to be consistent so people get to know who you are on your personal brand and your social media platform.
I couldn't agree more. If it's part of your professional brand, it should be consistent. And oftentimes I tell people, hey, if you have an acronym for some sort of credential that's important to your profession, you should include that. It should be on your resume. It should be on your LinkedIn profile. Is it, Sarah Jones, MBA? Or is it, for me, on mine, you'll notice I have CPCC and CPWR, which means I'm a certified professional resume writer and certified professional career coach. So I always have to have the acronyms next to my things as well. I recommend that you start getting in that habit. Again, it's a consistent brand. You want them to always say, oh, look, same profile picture. Oh, look, same name, same acronyms. Again, it's all about being very consistent and telling your story. It's also important that if you suddenly switch gears and go a completely different direction, that you remember to change all those things as well. All right, so this is interesting. And this is, again, one of those things that I've done a lot of research on this stuff. I promise this isn't just me making up things in the back of my head and deciding to share them with everyone. But we found that if it's a crowded meeting and there's one table in the room and there's chairs around it and then there's chairs around the perimeter, the women are more likely to go take a seat around the perimeter of the room as opposed to taking a seat at the big table. And if you're one of those people, I want you to start doing that right away. Don't automatically stand or grab a chair in the outskirts of the room. And the reason why is because you want to be in a position where it's easier to join in the conversation and, more importantly, voice your opinion. So you're not talking out and raising your hand and talking about things if you have nothing valuable to say. But when you do have something valuable to say, you're much more likely to be heard when you're sitting at the big table as opposed to standing on the outskirts trying to get your voice heard. So keep in mind, this is all about how can you speak up, not just waiting for an opening to appear because you might miss your window, making sure you're in the right seat in the first place, literally and figuratively, so that you can contribute to the conversation, add value, and really show what value you bring to the table. Now, we talk about this a lot at NAPW. I know that there's definitely stuff in the works where we're looking into different ways to provide mentorship and that sort of thing. But this is really important. The right mentor is a powerful tool in your career arsenal. Whether you're new to the workforce, you're already well established in your career, you're an entrepreneur, or you're working in corporate America, it's really important. In fact, there's this book, and I'm going to tell you, it's old. It's from, I think it's probably from the late 80s, but this woman knew her stuff. There's this author named Sheila Wellington, and she was the former president of the Catalyst Foundation. She was the author of this book called Be Your Own Mentor. I literally just lent it out to my mentee last week. But she says that really one of the main reasons that men tended to rise higher in the ranks at the office was because they were more likely to be placed with a mentor at the beginning of their career, and they were more likely to have that guidance throughout their career. And what I'm going to challenge everyone today is don't just look for one mentor, but strive to create your own personal board of directors. It's really important. You're going to need different mentors for different aspects of your professional journey. And so think about who can help you navigate the corporate politics at your office, who can help you learn and get access to new resources, new connections that are going to help you grow, both the soft skills as well as maybe some of the hard skills that you're not getting in your job today, but you know you need to build a foundation in if you want to finally meet that next level. So really think about who's out there and how can you reach out and create those connections. Because it's not simply just sending a message to someone on LinkedIn and saying, please be my mentor, because that's never going to work. Similar to dating, you have to build a relationship, and it has to be something where both people are benefiting from it. So always keep in mind, what value can you bring to that person? What perspective? Also, how can you pay it forward? Maybe it's not in professional means, but how are you able to give a restaurant recommendation? How can you contribute if there's a project the person you're really interested in is working on, something that's near and dear to their heart? Have you raised your hand and said, I'd love to help out and volunteer? That's a great way to build a connection. So keep those kind of things in mind. Okay. So this is not a very flattering picture of this poor young woman. I'm sure if she saw that I put this up here, she wouldn't love me. But really, what I'm trying to get across here and what we're looking at in this picture is that they're stuck in a car, they're on a road trip. I'm going to say this is pre-smartphone era because this guy's literally flipping through and looking at directions. And isn't it the funny joke, right, that men refuse to stop and ask for directions? It kind of annoys me to death, but we'll talk about that some other day. While this tactic makes absolutely no sense on the road, there is a valuable lesson when it applies in the workplace. So something to keep in mind is that men, from the time they were young children, were taught to put on the bravado and to hide their fears when they were faced with challenging situations. And frankly, that can be a benefit when you're trying to get ahead in your career. So I'm not saying go and fake that you know a skill set when you completely don't know it and get yourself in trouble. But there are times when putting on confidence, when acting much more confident than we feel, is going to help us in our careers in the long run. There was a lot of research done around the fact that executives agree that confidence is essential to being a good leader and a good negotiator. And when you think about it, you have to have confidence in yourself for anyone else to want to believe in you. If you don't believe in yourself, why in the world should somebody else? So think about when you are feeling a little lost and helpless in a work situation, when do you become that duck that paddles like hell underneath the water but looks cool, calm, and collected above the surface? And that's really what I mean by this one. When all else fails, fake it till you make it. All right. This is our last poll of our inaugural eChapter event. And so switch on over to your poll, take a look, and the question is, do you find yourself apologizing all the time in the office? Is it 1, guilty as charged? Yeah, I say I'm sorry a lot. 2, no, it's really only when I mean to. Only when I'm doing something, or I don't really need to apologize, I'm kind of perfect. Natalie, are you able to see the results? Because I just lost them.
You know, Amanda, I think we're actually going to reload that again. It looks like it was closed prematurely.
Okay. All right, one more time. You get the opportunity to change your response if you weren't being honest. Do you find yourself apologizing a lot? And it's not going into the big, but you just happen to say, I'm sorry. And this is a loaded question, and I know it's a loaded question, but it is something we want to talk about.
Amanda, while you're waiting for the results, I'm sitting here thinking I had a meeting with our interns at the NAPW headquarters on Monday, and I told the story of how I used to fake it until I made it. And I have to confess, it's probably one of my only times I did something that could get me in trouble. But the statute of limitations is over, so I'm allowed to confess it to everybody here today.
Excellent.
We talk about faking it till you make it. When I was a prosecutor in New York, I would buy all of my suits for the courtroom at Lane Bryant, and because I was a bit heavier at that time, and Lane Bryant was a good place for you to get some plus size clothes at a decent price. And I would then go down to lower Manhattan to Canal Street and buy replica Chanel buttons and sew the Chanel buttons on the Lane Bryant suits, so that when I was in the courtroom, I had a, quote, Star Jones Chanel suit on. You know what? Fake it until you make it, baby.
I kind of think that's fabulous, by the way.
For me, very true.
That's wonderful. I think that's ingenuity. I'm just going to put that out there. I absolutely love it. Our results are in, and 80% of you said you're really only apologizing for something that truly merits an apology. And I'm going to say that's great. I'm also going to say I'm going to call BS on some of you guys. But 16% are saying, yeah, guilty as charged. I tend to say I'm sorry a lot in the workplace. And again, this is something that women tend to do in the workplace more often than men. We're more likely to just say, oh, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but, oh, you know, I'm sorry, but I have an idea, that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you're really not sorry. You're trying to be polite. And that's something that's kind of been bred into us since we were kids, that, you know, they talk about that story about how, you know, boys on the playground that are running around, they're considered leaders, but the women, the little girls running around on the playground telling everyone what to do, they were considered bossy. And I think this stems from that same issue where we're trying to be polite because we were taught to be ladies a long time ago, and that's stuck in our heads. But when we tend to apologize in the workplace over and over again, we're also unintentionally telling our boss and everyone around us that we're making mistakes all the time when we're really not. And that's an issue. There's something very interesting. There's a great book called A Woman's Guide to Successful Negotiating. It's by a gentleman named Lee E. Miller and his daughter Jessica. They wrote it together. It is one of my favorite negotiation books that's geared particularly towards women. But they put something in their book that said that this particular issue, apologizing when there's nothing to apologize for, is often interpreted by the men in your workplace as a sign of weakness or a lack of conviction. And when you think about it, if you're trying to close a business deal, you're trying to negotiate your compensation, you don't want to be apologetic. You want to get what you deserve, not what you think you need. So at the end of the day, I'm going to say let's not apologize all the time. And 80% of us looks like you're doing exactly what you should be doing. So pat yourself on the back. All right. This is one of my favorite things, and I don't care if you're looking for a job, you have no intention of looking for a job for a very long time. Something you want to keep in mind is that false modesty has no place in the workplace. That's not something we want to be doing. So if you want to get ahead, you not only have to deliver results above the expectations, you have to be recognized for those accomplishments. And what I recommend, whether it's a notepad, it's a Word document, it's an app on your phone, I like using Evernote to keep notes on my phone, however you want to do it, if it's a spiral notebook, start compiling a list of your accomplishments, your major contributions, positive feedback you've received, client reviews, your annual reviews with your boss, customer testimonials, whatever it is, start keeping a living, ongoing, breathing document of what's going on in your career. There's a number of reasons why this is important. For one, if you're ever in a position where you need to look for a job, you now have all the information you need in order to prep for interviews to talk about the value you provide, as well as rewrite your resume. This is key. You don't know if you're going to have access to that data when you need it. You should be holding on to records of this information. Make sure you're keeping the number part as well, the little details. Another reason, if you're ever going to walk into your boss's room and say, I'd like to talk about my raise, or I would like to talk about my next promotion, you now have fodder. You've been keeping a document of what's going on in your career. And also, I'm going to put it out there, you're going to have a day like this. And you have to remind yourself, you know what, even though today is a really horrible day, I'm good at what I do for a living. I am good at my job. Let me look at this document and remember that I know what I'm doing. Today's just a bad day. So these are things to keep in mind. I love this idea of having the brag list because, frankly, you want to make sure you're prepared, and you want to also have that information at your fingertips, because if you, and when I would like to say, when you are going to negotiate for that better salary or for that new job or a better promotion, it's much easier to feel confident when you have some data to back yourself up. So I'm going to leave you with this before we start our Q&A. I love this quote by Ralph Marston. There are plenty of difficult obstacles in your path. Don't allow yourself to become one of them. And it's so true. So I hope this helped you guys kind of think about, what can I do a little differently? These are not huge changes. Nothing I mentioned should be some huge thing that's going to take over your life, but these are little small tweaks that you can make to your behavior in and out of the office, to your online presence, that will help you take your career to the next level and really think about, where do I want to go, and is my brand supporting that mission?
Thank you. Wonderful. Amanda, thank you. I think I was on mute. That was wonderful. Very, very informative. I just wanted to add a couple of things in here. There's a great book called The Art of Tooting on Horn Without Blowing It by Peggy Klaus. Are you familiar with that book, Amanda?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, this is meant to be a great read. So, ladies, it's one that's been recommended to me. The Art of Tooting on Horn Without Blowing It. I'll have Natalie and the author so that you can look that one up. I'm going to bring Natalie on with us, Natalie Dougherty, who is hosting our chat room today. And just before she starts with the Q&A, because there's lots of great questions I've seen coming in, I have just two quick questions for you. First one is, if you close accounts, do they completely disappear? And the second one is
Wait, I only heard the first part of that.
Okay, if you close accounts, do they completely disappear? And the second question is, how often should you check your security settings?
Two really great questions. If you close the account, is it really gone forever? And I'm going to say no. Unfortunately, you know, the second a tweet's out there, it could be there forever. And the reason I say that, it's not that people can go back to that account, but if anybody took a screenshot of it, if anybody, you know, saved it, then yeah, you can't be convinced, you can't be positive that it's gone forever, but it's definitely a good step. I also think this stuff is so important because you think of the younger kids today, think of your children, those who have grown up with social media since they were babies, right? Those are the ones I worry the most about, because what they're putting out there in high school and middle school and college could really come back to haunt them later in life. So something to keep in mind. In terms of the security settings, on most sites, it doesn't change that often. Facebook is the one that I'm always very skeptical about. I feel like they change their settings and how things work fairly often. The one thing I will say is they are supposed to be emailing you and letting you know when a change occurs, so make sure whatever email address you're associating with your accounts, it's one that you still receive the emails to, so that you're aware when changes take place. And a lot of times those emails are a bunch of mumbo jumbo and it's challenging to understand what's going on, but normally if there's a big enough change happening, if you Google it online, chances are you'll find out information about what's going on and how you can safeguard yourself. And when in doubt, always feel free to contact their help desk or their support center. They are supposed to be helping you with those sorts of things. So there should be an FAQ or some sort of customer service rep who can help you through that.
Good tips there, Amanda. Okay, Natalie, your turn.
Hi, ladies. How are you? Thank you so much for your interactions and engagement during our first eChapter meeting. We've gotten some amazing questions. So Amanda, here's a good one I found from pretty early on from Lisa, and I'm going to go ahead and broadcast this so everyone can see it. So ladies, you should be seeing this question right now. So how do we craft our, and this is from Lisa, I don't know where Lisa's from, but Lisa, you can comment and tell us. So Lisa asks, how do we craft our personal brand with coworkers when we work from home most of the time? Is there a class that presents ideas on how to present ourselves in a positive and professional light via digital communication tools?
Oh, that's such a good question, and I have done work on that before when you're talking about how do you brand yourself when you're not in a room on a regular basis with everybody. And so there's a couple things you can do. One is think about, do you really have to do everything via email all the time? Are there opportunities to do Google Hangouts? Are there opportunities to do webinars or using GoToMeeting or something like that so you can video conference or even FaceTime on your iPhone? Think about those types of options because it is really challenging to make that connection and to reinforce your brand when you're not in the room and you're not seeing these people on a regular basis. So I would look for opportunities where you're not necessarily emailing them, but you can actually have some sort of quote-unquote face-to-face time through technology. And or think about also when you're doing something like that. Or, you know, if you can't do that, phone calls are also great. But also think about if you're going to do anything where they're going to see you and your background, just think about your environment. Is it a quiet environment? Is it professional, or is it very full of junk, and is it cluttered? Is the lighting good? So similar to a virtual interview, you have to think about your environment because all of that plays a role in the brand.
Great.
Turn off.
We just wanted to make sure it was.
Whoa.
Okay, ladies, sorry about that. We're learning just as you are here today with our technology. This is such a cool platform, and we're sorry for that interference there, but that was a great question and answer, and again, that was from Lisa. So the next question we have is from Sherry. So Sherry asks, how does one get in front of the right people? And this is, Amanda, a question where I feel like we've had this conversation before, you know, really just finding those contacts. How do you get in front of them? So
Right.
she wants to know, how do I get in front of the right people? I have a mentor. I have my 5-year plan. I took a leap of faith and I quit my job to get my business off the ground. I go to trade shows and networking meetings, and I still don't know how to get in front of the people I need to get in front of.
So the one thing I'll say is that probably at the trade shows, and obviously it depends on what's your profession, but in often the trade shows, you're dealing with someone who's probably not the decision maker. It's the person who came for the most swag, right, at the end of the day. And so what I would do, though, is use those people as opportunities to get to the higher-ups. Also, particularly if you're trying to get to high-level execs and something like that, there's actually a really great article by Forbes, and I'll make a note and I'll share it later on Twitter and on the event page on NAPW NYC. But there's a great article by Forbes about kind of cold calling your way into a new role. And I think it works also very well when you're trying to get in front of certain people, is that if you get the right contact information, you want to try and email the person and actually put some value in it. Why do they want to speak to you in the first place? So it can't be all about you, it has to be about them. What value are you bringing to the table? How are you helping them? Assuming that this is some sort of, you want to create a partnership, you want to somehow distribute to them, whatever it may be. I think that's great. Also, continue growing the network because you will find other ways. If your current network isn't connected to who you want to be a part of, then I think you have to start thinking outside the box as to where will I find the people who will be. I always say LinkedIn's a great research tool. Run an advanced search, see where these people are and where their connections are. Also, figure out if they're high enough up, are they speaking? Are they doing a certain speaking tour on that circuit? What types of foundations are they a part of? Again, you may have to create your own opportunity in order to get in front of these people. And I'd say you need more than one mentor. The type of mentor you have today is probably not the one to help you with this problem. They probably help you in other ways, and they're great. But you probably need a different type of mentor. So again, build a personal board of directors around you that can help you in different ways.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Amanda. And we have one last question here. You guys have given us so many phenomenal questions. We're actually going to be able to look at all of these and answer them through our social media and through Amanda's Twitter as well. We'll be able to work with her to make sure that we do get all of them addressed. But we do want to move on and make sure we get to the next segment here. So the last question here is from Christy. And Christy asks, I'll go ahead and broadcast it for you guys to see. So Christy asks, a concern of mine is making a genuine mistake at work and being perceived as incompetent. Any advice on how to best handle these situations? So Amanda, I thought this was really interesting because it goes back to everything you've said about, not apologizing when it's not necessary, and how often as women, we tend to do that a lot. So when you do really make a mistake, rather than it, giving you that perception as you're not good enough, how do you take accountability and apologize for that?
That's such a great question, and I have written about this before for a couple publications. The one thing is, hey, if you make a genuine mistake, there is something to apologize for. You do. You pop up, you own up to it, you say you're sorry, but then you move on. And I think the thing that women tend to dwell on the most is that you keep dwelling on it, and that knowing that you made that mistake has suddenly impacted your performance and your behavior at work going forward. And so that's the one thing is that, when guys make mistakes, if they say they're sorry, great. That doesn't always happen. But then it's gone, and they're moving on to the next thing. And I think there is something to be said for that. In terms of, obviously, you're dealing with people who are remembering, same thing as making a mistake is being known as the girl who cried at her desk, right? It's, again, another thing. So what I would recommend is, obviously, killing it at your job and outperforming from before, putting in the extra effort, but also look for other ways to provide value in the organization that may be unconventional. And what I mean by that is that perhaps they have a corporate social responsibility program that maybe you get involved with, or you start making an effort to really get to know people who are in different business units and growing your network. If you work in a very large company, chances are you don't know everybody. But the biggest thing is, don't dwell on it. Don't keep bringing it up. Acknowledge it and then move on. And then really, it's all about your performance at the end of the day. How do you come back from that? And how do you do everything in your power to promote the brand you want going forward?
Great. Okay, awesome. Amanda, thank you so much for being so interactive and having such great on-the-fly answers. These are some questions that I think we all want to ask, and maybe it's a little easier to do when we have an expert like you. So thank you so much, and thank you again to our members for the Q&A. And now we'll turn it back over to Louise.
Thanks, Natalie. We're going into our final segment here. I know we are past 5 o'clock or just past 5 o'clock, so please stay with us. Our segments are 3 minutes long, and there are 3 of them, and it's our 3 special VIP member spotlights. Our first one today, who I'd like to introduce, is Johanna Alter-Wilson, the owner of Strategic Financial. Johanna.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to speak and share with you today. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, it is quite intimidating when you have 3 minutes to take your career experiences and sum them up into a few words, knowing you have only a few minutes to impact someone's way of thinking, but to help encourage one to have a new idea, tap into a feeling they may have not begun to think about. All of that can be very overwhelming, or it can be very exciting and invigorating. I've had the fortune of being in an industry that has had enormous changes, which had ripple effects through every industry around, even if it was not a direct impact on a specific business or person's life. They know about the changes, and this causes the ugly word of fear, as Amanda also spoke about. Usually I have only 10 to 20 seconds to connect to a person, initially, and my approach has always been to tackle fear. Not create fear, but help people push through it. In 2009, I took over leadership of a business from my father and embarked on a transformation of my time, my attitude towards my workload, my work ethic, and my family life. And just when I thought I had figured things out, in 2014, the Affordable Care Act came onto the scene, and it gave every person, not gender-specific, many feelings they never had. One of them was the fear of having an opportunity to participate in something that offered them financial support, but not knowing who to talk to or how to access it. That began a 6-month transformation of my business, and a new strategic plan was born. It spanned multiple lines of my business and added a whole new assortment of products and certification requirements. Talk about fear. My discovery was that men and women have fear of dealing with their past mistakes, their bad decisions, their fear of not knowing who to talk to about opportunities, their lack of knowledge, the fear of being vulnerable. And through this, I was able to cultivate strong new relationships, which each individual tackle my own fears about business growth and personal changes. So I came up with my own plan to manage all of this, which was focusing my effort in areas that require attention, tools and products to accomplish my goals, and encouragement to keep me through the peaks and valleys. This encouragement came from my personal quality of life, the education, not skipping steps or pretending to be something I wasn't, being honest to myself and pushing ahead lessened my fear and offered the feeling of strength that I was able to then pass on. So this is my soundproof setup that I found that works in every situation I come in contact with. And each person leaves with a feeling of a calmer state of mind and a connection within an industry they've been a part of for many years. This keeps me inspired and hungry for more. And the fear has been replaced with pride and accomplishments and the fortitude to keep going. So that's really all I think I have time to share. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I'm actually working on revamping my website to actually catch up with all of this stuff that I had done in the last few years, because it clearly, you can't do it all at the same time.
Thank you, Johanna. Thank you very, very much. I want to go to our second VIP member spotlight, Iram Ganju, President of IKG Global Consultants, LLC. Iram? Iram, you need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. We've got you.
Hi.
Hi,
Thank
Iram.
you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies. And congratulations to NAPW for the launch of the eChapter, and it is my pleasure to be a presenter today. Fear, I think, is the topic of the day. Let's start with, I'll ask a question for all of you, I'm sure. What's your dream? Everybody has a dream. I'll ask, what's your dream? And as Tory Burch says, if it doesn't scare you, you're probably not dreaming big enough. I dreamt big. At times it was scary, but I was fearless, and my dream came alive. I have quit my job and I had my first baby and was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, raising 4 kids, doing all the million of duties that mothers do. My dream was to have a business. What kind of business? I wasn't sure. But I knew what I enjoyed, and that it was helping people find solutions. One day, all 8 of us on the PTO board received an email request from a relocation company regarding a German couple moving to New Jersey, and if there would be anyone willing to help them understand living a life in the United States. My colleagues thought it was a spam, but I replied to it and then made the inquiry by phone, and I learned that Audi of America was opening offices in Allendale, the town I live in, and this German family will only accept this position once they understand the reality of living in the U.S. by a local. The couple was expecting their first baby, and they were understandably anxious about relocating. So I agreed to take on the assignment and met with the family. I treated them as my guest, drove them around the New York area, found a realtor to show them houses, arranged a meeting with the local hospital's maternity ward, and talked to the doctors so they get the peace of mind. They returned to Germany and accepted the assignment offer, which was great for them. For me, I had the greatest experience helping someone make a major life decision based on my expat support services. I feel good that my company, IKG Global, helps support families in global transition. In the corporate world, it can take up to $1 million to relocate just one executive and their family. If I don't provide them with excellent destination services, it is not just a failed assignment, but lost ROI. My job is to help companies reduce lost ROI by mitigating that risk and stabilizing the expat family. It's what helped me decide what I wanted to do. So I established IKG Global in 2007 in the USA, and we now have offices in the UK and Singapore. We provide HR solutions and relocation services, which include destination services and cross-cultural adaptation support, global payroll management, sourcing, and now the newest addition, employer of the record services. My company just earned the 2015 Fast 100 Asian American Companies Award from the U.S. Pan Asian American Chamber of Commerce. I continue to follow my dreams fearlessly. And with NAPW, I've been a member since 2007, thanks to an NAPW conference I was attending where guest speaker was Ariana Huffington. She invited me to blog about my fearless journey, which could make a positive impact on others. I look forward to connecting with you all on NAPW or LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Aram. Last but not least, our third VIP spotlight is Janine Schindler, Principal Owner of Jazz Coaching and Training Incorporated. Janine.
Hello, Louise, and hello, everybody out there. I am Janine Schindler. I'm a native New Yorker and a founding member of the New York City chapter with none other than our Louise Newsom, where I've had the privilege to serve as the first vice president for the past 5 years, working side by side with Louise. I'm truly honored to be one of the presenters at our first eChapter gathering, and so inspired by all that Amanda has shared, Joanna, and certainly my colleague in the New York chapter, Iram. So what I really do is help people be happy, where they spend most of their waking hours, and that's not in bed, it's at their job. Now, did you know that according to Gallup, that 70% of workers are disengaged? That's almost 3/4 that are checked out every day in a workplace. Your job is getting harder all the time. Listen to what Amanda was sharing. But most critical, it's your responsibility in today's highly stressed workplace with these tough economic times to think about the how of your job. How do you help people? How do you help yourself? How can you and your people be operating at the best levels, thereby receiving, sustaining peak performance? Performance is what everybody counts on. Performance is what matters, so they tell us. My mission, when I launched my global company, JAS Coaching and Training, at one of the world's most crazy and stressful times, that being right after September 11th, was to address this. A lot of people focus on what you do. We focus on how you do it. My company helps you do it better. Since we spend most of our waking hours at our jobs, why not take the steps to make our jobs and workplace a fun place to work and play? A place where people connect with both their strengths and passion, just like Amanda went through just prior. At JAS Coaching and Training, we strive every day with every client we work with to achieve this goal. Whether we are working with an employee, a manager, someone in transition on the leadership pipeline, or a business owner like so many of you, all of our team programs and individual coaching provides the unique support needed to yield results in individual growth, organizational growth, purposeful action, and sustained improvement. We use a format which is both formal yet personalized, and that approach integrates proven technologies for change. Change, the scariest 6-letter word in the English language, but if you fail to change, you fail to exist. And we do this one client at a time and one organization at a time. People who have worked with us avoid ending up in that 70% of that sagging motivation and of falling short of potential. And the bottom line is spending those waking hours with no fun and no enthusiasm. Who wants that? So I really want to thank you for joining the eChapter today. Those of you in the New York area, please make sure you stop into our chapter. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate this opportunity and being with you at other eChapter gatherings. You can see I have a website there, but based on everything that Amanda said, I've got to take a look at my branding. So I look forward to hearing from all of you. Please be in touch, and best of luck to all of you.
Thanks, Janine. Ladies, as we wrap up our first eChapter event, I'd like to announce that over 500 members signed up for this event today. This shows that our members love the eChapter. Amanda, thank you for an amazing presentation, so insightful, and to our 3 VIP members for sharing their areas of expertise. Also, I cannot end without making a special thank you to Star for opening our event today, and to the NAPW team for working so hard to pull this together. NAPW rocks inside and out. As the site states, mark your calendars for our next event, September 9th, Women of Achievement at noon Eastern Time. Thank you, ladies, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Louise, you did a great job. I'm sorry. I have to tell you, I'm so excited. This is supposed to be fun. This is not supposed to be so stuck up. It's supposed to be a time for women to get together.
Okay, next time, do we have wine? Are we allowed wine?
Great.
Plan that for next time.
It's about 5 o'clock. I'm telling you, the next time, I make a motion that we move it to just a little bit later so that we can enjoy wine wherever we are. This has been an amazing time of networking for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Star. Goodbye, everyone.